The galaxy had known peace for 40,000 years. At least that is what the rulers called it. The Hegemony Council controlled everything. 12 ancient species sat at the top, and everyone else served them. This was the way of things. This was how it had always been. Ambassador Velketh stood at the viewing window of Border Station 7. He was a Silithran, a being made of living crystal that caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. His people were old, wise, and very good at following rules. Today his job was simple. Watch the empty space at the edge of known territory. Nothing ever happened here. Then something did. The alarm screamed. Velketh turned to his crew, his crystal body humming with confusion. On the screens, a single dot appeared from nowhere. It came from the direction of the Great Dark, the empty void between galaxies where nothing lived and nothing could survive. "What is it?" Velketh asked. His sensor officer, a small furry creature called a Mulgari, checked the readings 3 times. "Unknown vessel, Ambassador. Design does not match any species in our records. It is crude, very crude, but it is real." The ship came closer. It was ugly by hegemony standards, all sharp angles and rough metal. Scars covered its hull like old wounds. Strange engines burned at its back, pushing it forward with what looked like small explosions. "Open communication," Velketh ordered. Static filled the speakers. Then a voice came through, speaking a language the translation systems had never heard. It took several minutes for the computers to learn it. When they did, the voice became clear. "This is Captain Yuki Tanaka of the United Earth ship Defiant Hope. We come in peace. We seek only a place to live." Velketh leaned forward. "United Earth ship? Earth? I do not know this word." "Our home," the voice replied. "A small blue world, very far from here. Our sun was dying. We had no choice but to leave." The ambassador felt something strange in his crystal heart. These beings had crossed the Great Dark. Every scientist in the hegemony said this was impossible without gate technology. You needed the ancient pathways that connected the stars. No one could survive the void between galaxies. Yet here they were. "How long was your journey?" Velketh asked. 847 years. Silence fell over the station. 800 years. These creatures had been traveling for 800 years. Generations had lived and died on that ship, all for the hope of finding a new home. "You must come aboard our station," Velketh said. "There are procedures." Within the hour, a small shuttle left the human ship and docked with the station. The doors opened, and Velketh saw humans for the first time. They were small, soft. They had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons that he could see. Their captain, Yuki Tanaka, was a woman with dark hair and tired eyes. She moved slowly, carefully, like someone who had carried a heavy weight for a very long time. "Welcome," Velketh said. "I am Ambassador Velketh of the Silithran Collective. I represent the Hegemony Council." "Thank you," Tanaka replied. "We have traveled very far. My people are tired and hungry. We hope to find friendship here." Velketh wished he could offer her that. But he knew the law. "I must explain our customs," he said carefully. "When a new species enters hegemony space, there is a process. Your ship must be surrendered for assessment. Your people must undergo integration processing. You will be assigned a place in our society based on your abilities." Tanaka listened. Her face did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. "What does integration processing mean?" she asked. Velketh paused. He had never had to explain this before. Every species simply accepted it. "Your culture will be evaluated. Unnecessary elements will be removed. Your people will be taught the correct way to live. You will serve the hegemony in whatever role we decide is best." "And if we refuse?" The question hit Velketh like a physical blow. In 40,000 years, no one had asked this question. Every species that encountered the hegemony saw their massive fleets, their countless worlds, their absolute power, and they surrendered. It was logical. It was survival. "Refusal is not an option," Velketh said. "You are one ship. We are 10,000 worlds." Captain Tanaka looked at her crew. There were only 5 of them in the shuttle. Behind her, on the Defiant Hope, 12,000 humans waited for news. 12,000 souls who had survived the impossible journey across the dark. She turned back to the ambassador. We respectfully decline your offer. Velketh felt his crystal body crack slightly. This had never happened before. He did not know what to do. You do not understand, he said. If you refuse, you will be destroyed. Our fleets will reduce your ship to dust. You cannot fight the hegemony. Perhaps, Tanaka said calmly, but we will not give up who we are. We did not cross 800 years of darkness to become slaves. She stood tall, this small, soft creature, with no claws and no armor. And somehow she seemed larger than anyone Velketh had ever met. My people have a saying, she continued. It is better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and the death of our own son. We did not do this by surrendering. Velketh opened a communication channel to the Hegemony Council. His hands were shaking, something they had never done before. Council, he said, we have a situation. Within hours, the news spread across the galaxy. A ship had appeared from the void. A new species had been discovered. And for the first time in 40,000 years, someone had said no to the hegemony. High Arbiter Sorn received the report in his fortress on the throne world. He was a dominarch, a massive insect-like creature with armored plates and crushing claws. His species had helped build the hegemony. They did not tolerate disobedience. One ship, he said, his voice like grinding stones. One small ship refuses us? Yes, High Arbiter, his servant replied. Zorn stood. His shadow fell across the room like a dark cloud. Then we will show them what happens to those who refuse. Assemble a fleet, 200 warships. We will turn these humans into an example. Far away on the Defiant Hope, Captain Tanaka watched the stars through her window. She knew what was coming. She had seen the size of the hegemony's power. But she also knew her people. They had survived everything the universe had thrown at them. They would survive this too. She pressed the ship-wide communication button. This is your captain. The hegemony has rejected our request for peaceful settlement. They want us to give up our freedom, our culture, our identity. I have told them no. She paused. I know you are scared. I am scared too. But we did not travel 800 years to bow to tyrants. We are human, and we do not kneel. Across the ship, 12,000 voices rose in answer. They did not cheer or shout. They simply said one word, together, as one people. Never. And so it began. The Hegemony Council met in the Great Hall of 10,000 stars. 12 ancient species, 12 seats of power, 12 voices that controlled the fate of the galaxy. They had gathered to discuss something that had not happened in living memory. Someone had said no. High Arbiter Sorn stood before them, his armored body clicking with anger. These humans must be destroyed. Their defiance is a disease. If we allow it to spread, others will follow. Ambassador Velketh raised a crystal hand. I urge caution. These creatures cross the void between galaxies. No species has ever done this. Perhaps we should study them first. Study them, Zorn laughed, a terrible sound. They are primitives. Their ship runs on explosions. They have no gate technology, no energy shields, no advanced weapons. They are nothing. And yet they are here, Velketh replied quietly. Against all logic, against all science, they are here. Does that not concern you? The council argued for hours. In the end, they reached a compromise. Zorn would take his fleet to surround the human ship. He would give them one final chance to surrender. If they refused again, he would destroy them. While the council debated, hegemony intelligence officers worked to learn everything they could about the newcomers. They scanned the Defiant Hope with their most advanced sensors. They intercepted human communications. They studied everything. What they found disturbed them deeply. The first report came from a biology expert. These humans are persistence predators, she explained to the council. On their homeworld, they did not hunt with speed or strength. They simply followed their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They can walk for days without stopping. Their bodies are designed to never give up. The second report came from a medical analyst. Their healing abilities are remarkable. They can recover from injuries that would kill most species. Broken bones? They heal. Lost blood? Their bodies make more. Cut off a piece of skin? It grows back. They are incredibly hard to kill permanently. The third report was the most troubling. It came from a cultural historian. These humans have been at war with themselves for most of their history, he said. They fight over land, resources, ideas, even colors. They have killed millions of their own kind. By all logic, they should have destroyed themselves long ago. Zorn leaned forward. Then they are savage and violent. More reason to eliminate them. You misunderstand, the historian replied. Despite all this war, they did not go extinct. They kept fighting, kept surviving, kept building. Every disaster made them stronger. Every war taught them new ways to survive. They are the most adaptable species I have ever studied. There was one more detail that troubled the council. The humans had brought other creatures with them on their long journey. Wolves, cats, animals that were predators on Earth. Why would they bring dangerous beasts? A council member asked. The answer came from the human communications they had intercepted. A child on the Defiant Hope was talking to her pet dog. They keep them for companionship, the analyst explained. They took predators and made them into friends, into family. The council fell silent. What kind of species makes friends with predators? 2 weeks later, Zorn's fleet arrived at the quarantine zone. 200 warships surrounded the single human vessel. They blocked every escape route. There was no way out. Zorn opened a communication channel. His massive face appeared on screens throughout the Defiant Hope. Humans, he said, you have been given time to reconsider. The hegemony offers you one final chance. Surrender your ship, accept integration, or die. On the bridge of the Defiant Hope, Captain Tanaka sat in her chair. Her crew watched her with steady eyes. Behind her, 12,000 people waited for her answer. She pressed a button. High Arbiter Zorn, I request a direct communication channel with you, privately. Zorn agreed, curious despite himself. Captain Tanaka did not beg. She did not threaten. Instead, she told him a story. 847 years ago, our sun began to die. We had a choice. Give up and wait for death, or build ships and search for a new home. We chose to search. She paused. The first 100 years were the hardest. Many ships were lost. Disease killed thousands. Some people went mad from the endless darkness. But we kept going. Zorn listened. He did not know why. After 300 years, we found a world that could support life. We were so happy. Finally, a new home. But the planet was poisonous. Slowly, it killed everyone who landed there. Another 1,000 dead. Tanaka's voice remained steady. We buried them in space and continued, generation after generation. Parents taught children who taught grandchildren. We kept our stories alive. We kept our hope alive. And finally, we found you. She looked directly at the screen. You may destroy us, Arbiter. Your weapons are powerful and your ships are many. But understand what you are destroying. Teachers who still recite poetry from nations that fell 3,000 years ago. Engineers who maintain engines built by their great-great-grandparents. Children who have never seen a sky but dream of one. Her eyes were fire. We did not cross the dark between galaxies to die at the hands of those who are afraid of a single ship. For a long moment, Zorn said nothing. Then he cut the transmission. On the border station, a young Silithran communications officer named Velseth had been monitoring all channels. She had heard every word of Captain Tanaka's story. Her people had served the hegemony for 20,000 years. They had forgotten what it meant to hope. They had forgotten what it meant to refuse. But these humans remembered. Without permission, without orders, Velseth did something that would change the galaxy forever. She broadcast Captain Tanaka's message across every open channel. Every station, every ship, every world that could receive a signal heard the story of the humans. Within hours, the message had spread to 100 worlds. 1 billion beings heard about the small species that had crossed the impossible dark. They heard about 12,000 people who would rather die than kneel. On a mining world, a Mulgari worker stopped his machine and listened. Tears ran down his fur. On a factory planet, Grethic workers passed the message from one to another in whispers. On a dozen slave worlds, beings who had known nothing but servitude looked up at the stars and felt something strange in their hearts. Hope. The word spread like fire. Hope. These humans carried hope with them, across 800 years of darkness, and now they were sharing it. High Arbiter Zorn gave Captain Tanaka one rotation to surrender, one day to accept slavery or death. But something had already changed, something that no fleet could stop. The humans had not fired a single weapon. They had done something far more dangerous. They had reminded the galaxy what it meant to be free. And on 17 worlds, in 17 different languages, beings began to whisper a new word: defiance. 6 months had passed since the humans arrived. The defiant hope still floated in the quarantine zone, surrounded by hegemony warships, but it had not been destroyed. The Hegemony Council could not agree. Some wanted to turn the human ship into dust. Others feared what would happen if they did. The message had spread too far. Too many people had heard the human story. If the hegemony killed them now, they would become martyrs. Their memory would live forever. So the humans waited. And while they waited, something extraordinary happened. Ships began to defect. It started small. A cargo hauler here, a transport vessel there. They would slip away from their assigned routes and travel to the quarantine zone. They brought food, medicine, spare parts. They brought something else too. They brought questions. Corveth was a Mulgari, a squid-like creature with 8 arms and sad eyes. His people had served the hegemony for 8,000 years. They hauled cargo, cleaned stations, did all the work that the elder races considered beneath them. Corveth had never known any other life. One night, he flew his cargo ship to the edge of the quarantine zone. A human shuttle came to meet him. "I brought supplies," Corveth said nervously. "Food, medicine. I do not know why I came. I had to." The human in the shuttle was a woman named Maria. She smiled at him. "Thank you," she said simply. "What can we give you in return?" Corveth was confused. "In return? I do not understand." "You brought us gifts. We should give you something back. That is how trade works." Trade. Corveth had never heard this word. In the hegemony, the servant races gave everything to the masters. They received nothing in return. The idea that exchange could be equal was completely foreign to him. "Tell me more about this trade," he said. Maria spent hours explaining. She told him about markets, about negotiation, about the idea that both sides of a deal should benefit. Corvette listened with growing wonder. "Your people do this? You give and receive as equals?" "Of course," Maria said. "How else could it work?" Corvette returned to his route with a head full of new ideas. He told other Mulgari what he had learned. They told others. The word spread. Trade. Equals. Fair exchange. On the Defiant Hope, Dr. Samuel Okonkwo led the diplomatic team. He was an old man with white hair and gentle eyes. He had spent his whole life studying history, all the rises and falls of human civilization. "We must be careful," he told Captain Tanaka. "Ideas are powerful things. We cannot simply give them away without thought." "What do you mean?" Tanaka asked. "Every species that comes to us is learning things their masters kept hidden: democracy, individual rights, the concept of freedom itself. These ideas will spread. They will cause revolutions. People will die." Tanaka nodded slowly. "So we should stop teaching?" "No," Okonkwo said. "We cannot stop truth, but we must be honest about what we are doing. We are not just sharing information. We are lighting fires. We must be ready for what comes next." What came next surprised everyone. On a factory world called Greth 4, workers produced weapons for the hegemony fleet. They worked 16 hours a day, every day, with no rest and no reward. One morning, an overseer beat a worker for moving too slowly. The worker died. In the past, the other workers would have simply continued. Death was common. It meant nothing. But now one worker stepped forward. His name was Kel, and he had heard the human messages. He had learned a new word. "Strike," he said. The other workers stared at him. "We stop working," Kel explained. "We refuse to continue until they treat us better. The humans call it a strike." The overseer laughed. "You cannot refuse. You are property." Kel looked at him with something new in his eyes. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was certainty. "We are not property. We are people, and we will not work." One by one, the other workers put down their tools. They sat on the factory floor and did nothing. The overseer called for guards. The guards came, but they hesitated. There were 1,000 workers and only 50 guards. The strike lasted 3 days. In the end, the hegemony had to negotiate. They reduced working hours. They promised better food. Small changes, but changes nonetheless. It was the first successful strike in hegemony history. News of the Greth 4 strike spread even faster than the human message. Slave races across the galaxy heard that workers had refused, and they had won. The impossible had happened. High Arbiter Sorn watched these developments with growing fury. He had tried to convince the Council to destroy the humans immediately. Now it was too late. The infection had spread. The humans are not a military threat, he told the Council. They are a mimetic contagion. Their ideas are the weapon. Every day they live, more of our subjects learn about freedom. We must end this now. Finally, the Council agreed. Sorn assembled a massive fleet, 400 warships, enough firepower to destroy a planet. He would not just kill the humans. He would erase them from existence. There would be nothing left to remember. The fleet moved toward the quarantine zone. Sensors on the Defiant Hope detected them coming. 400 ships, the sensor officer reported. They will arrive in 6 hours. Captain Tanaka closed her eyes. This was it. They had known this day would come. 12,000 humans against 400 warships. There was no way to win. Then the communication officer spoke up. Captain, we are receiving signals from multiple vessels. They are coming from all directions. On the screens, dots appeared. Small dots. Cargo haulers. Mining ships. Passenger transports. One by one, they emerged from hiding and moved toward the Defiant Hope. Corveth was there in his cargo ship. So were dozens of other Mulgari. There were Silithran dissidents who had abandoned their posts. There were Grethic workers who had stolen factory ships. There were species that had no names in human languages, all coming together for the first time. 47 ships in total. 47 ships crewed by beings who had decided that freedom was worth dying for. They formed a ring around the Defiant Hope, a living shield between the humans and the hegemony fleet. Captain Tanaka opened a channel. What are you doing? You will be killed. Corveth's voice came back, calm and steady. You taught us about trade, about fair exchange. You gave us hope. Now we give you protection. This is fair, yes? Tears ran down Tanaka's face. These aliens, these beings she had known for only months, were willing to die for her people. She straightened in her chair and opened a channel to the hegemony fleet. High Arbiter Zorn, you see the ships around us. These are not humans. These are citizens of your own hegemony. Will you fire on them? Will you kill your own people to destroy us? She paused. We came here looking for a home. We found something better. We found a family. Fire on us if you must. But know this, whatever happens today, you have already lost. The galaxy held its breath and waited for the answer. High Arbiter Sorn stared at the screen. 47 small ships stood between his fleet and the humans. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, ships that had no weapons, no shields, nothing but their courage. For a moment, just a moment, he hesitated. Then he gave the order. Fire! 400 warships opened fire at once. The first wave of energy beams cut through the shield fleet like knives through paper. Ships exploded. Lives ended in bright flashes of light. But the shield did not break. The surviving ships held their positions. They knew they were going to die. They did not run. On 100 worlds, beings watched the live transmission. They saw Mulgari cargo haulers flying into the path of weapons designed to destroy battleships. They saw Silithran dissidents sacrificing themselves for creatures they had known for only months. They saw what courage looked like. Corveth's ship took a direct hit. Half of his crew died instantly. With his remaining arms, he turned his burning vessel to block another shot meant for the Defiant Hope. His last words were broadcast across the galaxy. This is what freedom costs. It is worth the price. Then his ship exploded. 23 of the 47 shield ships were destroyed in the first minute. The others kept fighting, kept blocking, kept dying. And then something happened that no one expected. The Defiant Hope fought back. For 847 years, the humans had maintained a weapon system they hoped they would never need. It was simple, brutal, and absolutely devastating. They called it the God Hammer. Chunks of tungsten, each as big as a house, launched from magnetic rails and accelerated to 70% of the speed of light. No shields could stop them. No armor could survive them. At those speeds, even a small piece of metal hit with the force of a nuclear bomb. 3 shots, 3 hegemony dreadnoughts simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there. The next moment there was nothing but expanding clouds of gas and debris. The most powerful warships in the galaxy erased in an instant. The hegemony fleet scattered in terror. Ships broke formation, fleeing in all directions. They had never seen such a weapon. They had never faced anything they could not stop. High Arbiter Zorn screamed orders, but no one was listening. His captains had watched 3 dreadnoughts vanish. They wanted no part of whatever weapon could do that. In less than an hour, the battle was over. The hegemony fleet retreated, leaving their dead behind. The humans had won, but the cost was terrible. 29 of the 47 shield ships were destroyed. Over 2,000 brave beings had died to protect the Defiant Hope. Humans and aliens wept together as they collected the bodies of their fallen friends. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The hegemony, the unbeatable masters of 10,000 worlds, had been defeated by 1 human ship and a handful of rebels. More importantly, everyone had seen the truth. The masters could bleed. The masters could run. The masters were not gods. They were just bullies with big fleets, and bullies could be beaten. On 90 worlds, uprisings began. Slave races that had been obedient for thousands of years suddenly remembered that they outnumbered their masters 1,000 to 1. Factory workers seized their factories. Miners took control of their mines. Soldiers refused to fire on their own people. The hegemony was falling apart. Ambassador Velketh appeared on the Defiant Hope 3 days after the battle. He came alone without guards or weapons. He knelt before Captain Tanaka. "I speak for the Silithran people," he said. "We have served the hegemony for 20,000 years. We forgot who we were. You helped us remember. From this day forward, we stand with you." More species followed. The Mulgari declared their freedom. The Grethic abandoned their factories. One by one, the servant races of the hegemony joined what was now being called the Coalition of Free Peoples. The Hegemony Council watched their empire crumble. They retreated to their fortress worlds, abandoning the outer territories. High Arbiter Zorn was executed by his own people. Blamed for the disaster, his body was left unburied, a symbol of failure. In the midst of this chaos, Captain Tanaka received a message from the coalition leaders. They wanted her to lead them. They wanted a human to guide the new galactic civilization. She refused. "We did not come here to rule," she told them. "We came here to find a home. We will not replace one set of masters with another." Instead, she proposed something that had never been tried in galactic history: a constitutional convention. Representatives from every species gathered together to write laws. Not one ruler deciding for everyone. All peoples deciding together as equals. Dr. Okonkwo helped organize the gathering. Over 1,000 delegates from 100 species came together on a neutral station. They argued, debated, and sometimes shouted at each other, but they kept talking. On the first day, Okonkwo addressed the assembly. "I am a historian," he said. "I have studied every human civilization that ever existed, every empire, every kingdom, every republic. I have seen what works and what fails." He paused, looking at the alien faces around him. "We humans have made every mistake a civilization can make. We have been conquerors and slaves. We have built wonders and burned them down. We have killed millions of our own kind over things that did not matter." The delegates listened in silence. "We do not offer you our leadership. We are not wise enough for that. We offer you our scars. Learn from our mistakes. Build something better than we ever did." The convention lasted 3 months. In the end, they produced something remarkable: a charter that guaranteed rights to every being, regardless of species. A system where power was shared, not hoarded. A promise that no one would ever kneel again. It was not perfect. Nothing is perfect. But it was a beginning. As the convention finished its work, a warning came from the outer defenses. A hegemony strike force had been detected. They were not attacking the coalition fleet. They were heading straight for the Defiant Hope. The Loyalists had decided that if they could not win the war, they could at least destroy the symbol, kill the humans, break the hope. Captain Tanaka gathered her officers on the bridge. "They are coming for us," she said quietly. 30 warships. They do not care about winning anymore. They just want to hurt us before they fall. Through the view screen, they could see the approaching fleet. The ships that had carried humanity across 800 years of darkness was about to face its final battle. "What are your orders, Captain?" her first officer asked. Tanaka looked at her crew. These people had been born on this ship. Their parents had been born on this ship. Their grandparents had lived and died within these metal walls. The Defiant Hope was more than a vessel. It was their home. It was their history. "Sound general quarters," she said. "All hands to battle stations. We did not come this far to die running." The crew moved with quiet determination. There was no panic, no fear. They had faced the death of their son. They had crossed the impossible void. They would face this too. Outside, the hegemony fleet drew closer. Inside the Defiant Hope, 12,000 humans prepared to fight for their lives, their freedom, and their future. The final battle was about to begin. The hegemony death squad came in fast and hard, 30 warships against one wounded vessel, but they did not come to fight a space battle. They came to board. They came to kill every human with their own hands. The first wave of assault shuttles hit the Defiant Hope like a hammer. Armored warriors burst through the hull in a dozen places. They were the elite of the hegemony, soldiers bred for war, equipped with the finest weapons in the galaxy. They expected civilians. They expected easy kills. They were wrong. The humans had survived for 847 years in the void between galaxies. They had faced every danger the universe could throw at them. They were not warriors by choice, but they had learned to fight. In Corridor 7, a hegemony soldier advanced toward a group of humans. They looked helpless. Teachers, engineers, ordinary people with no armor and simple weapons. The soldier raised his weapon to fire. A woman stepped forward. She was a maintenance engineer named Sarah. In her hands was a plasma welding torch, modified to cut through anything. "You want us?" she said. "Come and get us." The soldiers charged. What followed was not a battle. It was a nightmare. The humans knew every corridor, every duct, every hidden space in their ship. They had lived here their entire lives. They turned the Defiant Hope into a maze of death. Doors slammed shut behind enemy soldiers, trapping them in rooms filled with toxic gas. Floor panels gave way, dropping invaders into the burning heart of the engines. Children guided defenders through secret passages while soldiers walked into ambush after ambush. In the medical bay, Dr. Chen faced 3 enemy soldiers alone. She was 60 years old, a healer who had never hurt anyone. The soldiers laughed at her. She triggered the emergency sterilization system. Ultraviolet light powerful enough to kill bacteria also blinded the soldiers. In the confusion, she escaped and sealed them in. In the school section, teachers formed a human wall to protect their students. When soldiers broke through, they found that even humans who had never fought before would die to protect their children. And dying humans fought with a fury that terrified even the elite warriors of the hegemony. The enemy had expected 12,000 helpless civilians. Instead, they found 12,000 people who refused to give up. But the hegemony had numbers and weapons. Slowly, they pushed forward. Section by section, they took the ship. The human defenders fell back, making them pay for every step in blood. On the bridge, Captain Tanaka received reports from every section. Hundreds dead, systems failing. The ship was dying. "Captain," her first officer said, "we need to evacuate. Coalition ships are standing by. We can save most of the civilians." Tanaka nodded. She had known this moment would come. "Begin evacuation. All non-essential personnel to the shuttle bays. Move quickly." The evacuation began. Thousands of humans streamed toward the shuttle bays, carrying children, helping the wounded, saving what they could. Coalition ships moved in close, opening their cargo bays to receive the refugees. But someone had to stay. Someone had to hold the enemy back while the others escaped. Someone had to fly the dying ship. Captain Tanaka looked at her crew. "I need 40 volunteers. Anyone who stays will not be coming back." Every single person on the bridge raised their hand. Every single one. Tanaka felt tears on her cheeks. I only need 40. The rest of you go. Help our people find their new homes. She chose her 40. Engineers who knew the ship, soldiers who knew how to fight, and herself. She would not ask anyone to do what she would not do. As the last shuttles left, Tanaka opened a channel to the enemy fleet. This is Captain Yuki Tanaka of the Defiant Hope. Your soldiers have boarded my ship. My people have evacuated, but the ship is still mine. Hi, General Krath, the Hegemony commander, responded. You have lost, human. Surrender and we will make your death quick. Tanaka smiled. It was not a friendly smile. You misunderstand. I am not surrendering. I am telling you what happens next. There is a Hegemony command station 6 hours from here, the symbol of your empire, the place from which you have ruled for 40,000 years. My ship is going to destroy it. Krath laughed. Your ship is crippled. You cannot possibly reach it. Watch me. The Defiant Hope began to move. Her engines, damaged but not dead, pushed her forward. She was slow, wounded, burning in a dozen places, but she was still flying. Behind her, the Coalition fleet closed around the refugee shuttles, protecting 11,000 humans as they fled to safety. Ahead of her, the Hegemony command station sat in its ancient orbit, unaware of what was coming. For 6 hours, the Defiant Hope flew. Hegemony ships tried to stop her. She destroyed 3 of them with her last remaining weapons. Others pulled back, afraid to get too close to a ship that had already proven it could kill dreadnoughts. Captain Tanaka sat in her chair. Around her, the 40 volunteers worked to keep the ship alive just a little longer. They sealed breaches, rerouted power, and pushed the engines beyond any safe limit. Captain, the communications officer said, the Coalition is asking if there is anything they can do. Tanaka thought about it. Tell them to watch. Tell them to remember. Tell them that we did not cross 800 years of darkness to live as slaves. She paused. And tell them thank you for giving us a family at the end. The Hegemony command station grew larger in the view screen. It was enormous, a fortress built over centuries, armed with weapons that could destroy planets. It saw the Defiant Hope coming and began to fire, but the human ship was already too close. The weapons missed, hitting empty space where the ship had been a second before. The Defiant Hope's sensors were dead, but her pilots flew by instinct, by memory, by sheer human stubbornness. At the last moment, Captain Tanaka opened a final transmission. It was broadcast across the galaxy to every world, every station, every being who could hear. My people left Earth with nothing but our children and our stubbornness. We crossed the impossible void because we refused to die. We found a galaxy in chains and we could not look away. She smiled. My people are safe now. They will spread across your stars. They will teach and learn and love and build. They will marry your people, raise families, create things we cannot imagine. That is our legacy. That is what we leave behind. She looked at the command station filling her view screen. Hope is not something you can kill. It passes from one hand to another. We gave it to you. Now carry it forward. The Defiant Hope hit the command station at full speed. The impact was visible from 1,000 light years away. The ancient symbol of hegemony tyranny vanished in a flash of light that outshone the stars. Captain Yuki Tanaka and 40 volunteers died that day. They died free. The hegemony did not survive the loss of their command station. Without central control, the remaining loyalist forces collapsed within months. The coalition of free peoples took its place, built on the principles that humans had shared with the galaxy. A new capital was constructed. They called it Tanaka Station, built in orbit around a beautiful garden world. That world was given to the surviving humans as a gift from the coalition. Finally, after 850 years, humanity had a home with a sky. The 11,000 survivors of the Defiant Hope scattered across the galaxy. They became teachers, diplomats, engineers, artists. They married aliens and had children. Human laughter echoed on 1,000 worlds. Dr. Samuel Okonkwo lived long enough to write a history of the journey. It became the most popular book in the galaxy. Beings who had never met a human read it and wept. His opening line became the most famous sentence in galactic literature. We left Earth with nothing but our children and our stubbornness. We found a galaxy in chains. We could not look away. 200 years after the fall of the hegemony, a Silithran child sat with her grandmother. Her grandmother was human, old and gray, but with bright eyes that held 1,000 stories. "Tell me about the old day," the child said. "Tell me about the ship." The grandmother smiled and pulled the child onto her lap. Outside the window, stars sparkled in an endless sky. Somewhere out there, the atoms of the Defiant Hope still drifted, mixed with the remains of the hegemony station. "A monument in space. Once, long ago," the grandmother began, "one human ship appeared, and the galaxy would never return to what it once was." The child listened with wonder as the story unfolded. The crossing of the dark, the refusal to kneel, the sacrifice and the victory. When the story was done, the child was quiet for a long moment. "Grandmother," she finally asked, "why did they do it? Why did they die instead of surrender?" The old woman looked out at the stars, remembering faces she had known long ago. "Because some things matter more than living," she said softly. "Freedom, hope, love." The humans understood that, and they taught the galaxy to understand it too. She hugged her granddaughter close. "That is what we leave behind, little one. Not ships or weapons or empires. We leave behind the people we love and the things we taught them. That is how we live forever." Outside, the stars burned eternal, watching over a galaxy that had finally learned to be free. And somewhere in the dark between those stars, the spirit of the Defiant Hope flew on, carrying hope to whatever came next. This is how the story ends. This is how the story begins again. Always.